Okay, good evening and welcome to the October 2nd, 2024 meeting of the Goffstown Economic Development Council. If you could all join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We do have a quorum, and did everyone review the minutes from last month, from September 4th? Not overly lengthy if you want to take a second now.
Motion to approve.
Thank you. Motion by Dick.
I'll second.
Second by Charlie. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, and I did skip roll call. I'll start with Joanne.
Joanne Duffy, Planning and Economic Development Director.
Oscar Revelo, alternate.
Sarah Smith-Chupakis, member.
And Chet Bowen, chair.
Jonathan Napoli, member. Charlie Birchmeyer, member.
Dick Bruno, vice chair.
Kelly Boyer, select board chair, representative.
Melanie.
Melanie.
Oh, Melanie's
evening.
here.
Melanie Renfrew Heber.
Way to adjust. That was amazing. Good job.
Reflect.
Good timing.
Oh, I'm sorry. They're passing everything around, so they're down at the end. Just take one from each packet. While you do that, I think I just wanted to mention, I did hear back from the owners of the villa. I reached out to them.
Oh, good.
And the person I spoke with was the operations manager, and he's going to speak with the owner, or he did speak with the owner, and the owner's interested in talking about the Brownsfield site.
great.
So
Oh.
we're going to hook everybody up in the next
Excellent.
week. Yeah,
So Cam, and I forget the other person's name.
I do
Judd?
too.
I wrote down Judd.
Judd.
Judd,
That sounds right. Yes.
Judd. That's excellent.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah.
Good. So hopefully we can get some progress on that. Joanne, is it safe to say that you put these four together, or were they sent to you by us separately for the resources to partner with?
For the what?
Resources to partner with, the first
Oh.
item on the agenda?
So that was like our assignment to
Yep.
put down the resources, so I just put the ones that I knew.
Great. So would you mind, since you do know them, just walking us through
Sure.
some opportunities with each of them that we could go through?
Sure. So everyone knows the Main Street program.
Sure.
They have reached out, they've come to a few of our meetings. I think they would like to work with us on some things. They have events throughout the year, but they also have workshops for businesses. So I think we could certainly speak with, I can't think of her name, but the woman who's usually comes here, and talk to her about, what she could use help with, and maybe we can come up with something where we could work together from now to the end of the year.
Yeah, I think that's, sorry, go ahead.
Tina, that's
Tina.
it, Tina.
I think, if I
Tina
remember
Walker.
correctly, that she had come in before and we all thought it was great that she did, and we were hoping to, someone keep me honest, but I think we were looking at bringing her back quarterly.
Yes,
Right, so maybe we can invite her next month and
Okay.
start that process, and just, because
Sure.
she was just giving us a bunch of ideas that I think we could at least try to help with,
Mhm.
and maybe vice versa down the line.
okay, I will reach out to her.
Thank you.
The next one is the Greater Manchester Chamber, and the town is a member, and many of the businesses in town are, but not all.
Yeah.
But sometimes they have things that, training sessions and things like that, that they do open it up to the communities, where the businesses themselves don't need to be a member. Obviously, they try and probably get them to join. And they're also doing the ribbon cuttings, which they're not going to just only to businesses that are a member. So they've been reaching out that way. They did a few of the ribbon cutting ceremonies in town here this past year. Cole has been involved with that.
Were they
Was the Lavaca?
Lavaca, that was the last
greater-
one they did.
Okay.
And then the market.
The market they did. They did a few others. I think they did Week's Pizza, and there was one other one, I can't remember. But, so yeah, so I can reach out and find out if there's anything that they do specifically for non-members, or members too, because, you know, obviously there are members from here, and just see like if we could get some ideas. I know they had something in there. They usually send out a monthly newsletter, and there was something in there from the last one that they sent that sounded like it was open to all.
Okay. And again, I think even when Cole came in here last time, I remember that we had thought about bringing him back. I don't think it was quarterly, but
Yeah,
maybe
yeah.
like once or twice a
Yeah,
year.
that
Do you
that
want to
would be
maybe
a good idea
invite him in
too.
December?
Sure. SCORE is another organization where you used to have to be a member, but now they're taking people and providing training sessions for these small businesses for free.
Mhm.
So they've changed the way they do things now. So they're a really good group, and they have lots of experience, and they have retired business owners doing the meetings where they help provide guidance on business plans. And I spoke with Ashley, the owner of Lottie Pops, not too long ago, and she is using them for her business plan. She's expanded, I don't know if anyone knows, but she has expanded into Pinardville with a wholesale candy shop that she's doing down there in the old Pizza 911 building.
Mhm.
And she hasn't opened his store back up yet. She was renovating it to have a different layout and different uses, and I think she's supposed to be opening it shortly, probably before the Pumpkin Regatta.
Great. Great. Thank you.
Didn't they do some kind of forum just this last month with SCORE at the quilt shop? Wasn't
They
that-
did, and I
We were
had-
invited to go there and
Yes.
wasn't able to.
I was unable to as well, and I can't remember why. I don't remember. I've been having a lot of back issues. It might have been because of that. I just don't remember. But I saw the photos online. I was so disappointed. It looked like there were like 3 people there.
Oh,
Yeah.
And that was a training session?
It was a training session from SCORE, but it was geared on about social media, and the quilt shop ladies are great with their social media,
Yeah.
so they were actually using them as an example on how to do it right. And it was a really bad showing.
Yeah.
that's too bad.
I mean, I understand because it was at 6 o'clock on a weeknight. People are busy and they're just coming home from
But
work.
I don't know if it
and-
made any difference. I think
Yeah.
that was the presidential debate night,
Oh,
too.
you know, I think you're right. It was, yeah. And that's what happens. I mean, you schedule these things ahead of time without knowing what else is going on out there. I mean, you don't always check like what's on TV and things like that, so that's unfortunate. Maybe they'll have another one. And then the last one is the Industrial Corporation, which we've had Mike Waller here
Yeah.
on occasions, and he has said that he would financially help with things if we had a plan of some sort, so
Mhm.
that's another option to team up with.
I forgot about that. I think that's underutilized by us.
Yeah,
When we have an
for
idea, we
sure.
could certainly reach out.
Yeah,
He's always been more than willing to do it
yeah,
with us.
yeah.
Okay. So maybe, again,
It
maybe
could
we
be
just
maybe
set him up for
January.
January, like, maybe just reconnect with some of these,
Yeah.
these people and see if we can find some partnership opportunities
Okay.
that way. And
We have some current vacancies. The White Birch Restaurant has closed.
So they're permanently closed, or?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
so, yeah. They had some issues and they just closed up. So I don't think they'll be reopening. I can tell you offline, but I don't want to
Okay.
publicize it. The flower shop next to the
Kingdom-
garage.
Yeah, Kingdom Automotive.
Kingdom
Yeah.
Automotive, they have closed several months ago now. They still have their stuff there,
they
but
do.
Actually, if you go by now, you're going to see that the windows appear to have been they're either boarded them up or they've
Oh.
removed them.
Oh.
So there's some type of activity going on.
Okay.
I go by there often, Joanne, and they were actually fixing, I want to call it cribbing that goes around
Okay,
the bottom.
yeah.
And then they were also doing something, maybe putting up slats in between where the windows were, maybe they were looking to
Oh.
replace them or something. And then they boarded over it. Maybe they're not going to be doing anything else for a little while.
The owner of the site where, not where, I can't think of the place, the name, the automotive place right next to Dunkin' Donuts, like there's a street between. He owns the flower shop.
He owns
building.
Yeah,
that property?
that building.
Okay.
So I can reach out to him and find out what's going on with what his plans are. And then Vito's Cleaners they retired.
Oh,
They
okay.
own,
Oh.
yeah, they own the building, so they're
They
still
do?
living there, parts of the building, but they've closed the cleaners, so I'm not sure what their plans are.
But they own that whole building?
They do.
They own the building there, and then their house is actually detached.
Oh, it's
And
detached,
it's
okay.
kind of behind it into like it's in a different lot. There's two
Okay.
lots.
Yeah.
So I know they're definitely closing because I have been in touch with the son who's dealing with it, and I don't know what their plan is going forward.
Okay. So, yes, those are the three that have closed most recently. The new businesses in town are, I don't know if you've probably seen it driving by, it's MAO Designs, which is an interior designer. They used to be my next door neighbors when they were kids, and now they're grown up and they have their own business. So she's very nice, and she's one of the sponsors of the Pumpkin Fest this year. We also have Caroline's Pot Pies, which they're currently operating on 101 in Bedford, and they're taking over the Shaking Crab restaurant. They moved out a while ago, and she bought the building. So they'll be making, so there's a wholesale operation where they have the frozen pot pies, and they sell them wholesale, but she also wants to have a location where people could come in. They're frozen when you buy them. People could come in and buy, and she'll also have a small area for sandwiches and salads and things like that for lunchtime. It's going to take a while before they're open, probably not until next year. She's renovating the whole interior of the building. And then I heard that Tiffany's was back open.
She did just reopen.
So they closed for a while. You know where Tiffany's is?
No.
In the plaza across from the old Shaw's Plaza, and it's off to the side.
Yep.
It's like a breakfast lunch restaurant. And they had closed up for a while, but she's back. So that's all I have on the businesses. We do have some things going on with the planning board. Some are on hold, some are going forward. There's a solar array company looking to put a site on the back road off of Tower Lane where the sports dome is, down like at the bottom. And there's another company that's a diesel repair that currently is located in Ware, and they've purchased the property at the same location next to they're adjacent to the other lot. And they haven't submitted yet, but we have met with them as a TRC. So that will be going forward in the future. We have a large subdivision that's looking to come in off of Acorn Drive, which is a dead end, and connect to, what's the name of that street? It's a small street in the Spice Rack. I can't think of the name of it.
I'm not placing where you're at.
You know where the
Acorn.
Spice Rack is? If you're heading up Terrell Hill Road and you make a left, and there's like lots of different, it's almost like a maze in there. There's lots of different roads, and it's a pretty large subdivision.
Is this the one that's gonna be by, like, me on Juniper? Like,
Yes, it's right above Juniper,
hmm.
and it's I think it's like 46 lots, I want to say. So that what they would do is they would come down Acorn, and it would no longer be a dead end. They would punch through, straight through, and end up at, I can't remember the name of the road, it's just a short little street in the Spice Rack itself. And it would all be a public road, it would just be like a connection. So you can actually go through and end up on Terrell Hill.
That's in for approval?
It came in
pending?
for a conceptual, and now they're working on the,
And those are single-family homes?
they are, yes. Yes, they'd be, they'd fit in with what's already there.
Yeah.
The only thing, the difference is it's an open space, so the houses are somewhat clustered, and then there's a large area of common
space.
land, which most of it is wet. So somebody's working on that plan. Trying to think what else we have. It's been put on hold, but there's a retail business looking to go next to the car wash.
Yeah.
And it's some kind of a store. They won't really tell us what it is. But the state is, because that's a state road there, state is requiring them to put in a turning lane. So it's been held up somewhat for that. I think there's a couple of others, I just can't think off the top of my head.
Joanne, could I ask you, just off the corner of 114A going into Bernardville, a lot of activity
Oh,
with
yeah.
the house there.
Those are 26 condos.
26 condos.
There's a building of 2 units. I think there's 3 buildings of 3 and like 2 or 3 buildings of 4 units. They just started, the tree clearing is finished, and now they're doing the site work. They're condominium townhomes, and they're currently owned by LaMontagne Builders, and he's doing the building.
Is that sewer and water there?
Yeah. They don't have a price for you. They didn't provide one.
When large developments like that, and the one that you're talking about near Juniper, is there still impact fees that are associated?
Yes, all residential is charged impact fees depending on what they're doing. It's different fees for each type of housing, like single families the most, and then
Right.
2-family. And there is no impact fees for businesses or industrial. So that's like a huge break on businesses. The typical single family is roughly about $8,600 per unit. And they charge for public safety, roads, parks and rec, and public schools.
Schools.
The school is the highest, obviously.
Okay. Well, thank you for these updates, I appreciate it. Out of curiosity, there used to be, I don't know how long ago now, but do you remember, I think it was called Grassmere General Store? That building, have you heard anything about that? I know it's zoned commercial, residential,
No,
but
we had a few realtors come in questioning what they could do with it.
yeah,
And I know that they were looking to just put some residential in there.
okay.
But they never really finalized anything. I don't really know what's going on inside. But
Been a work truck sitting there, well, it's actually a trailer
It's
with.
something, yeah, that's what I was wondering if that
Been
was.
sitting there for a
something to do
while,
with business.
and then I saw some people in the back of
Oh,
the
really?
property working, so I don't,
oh,
And I can
some
tell-
activity.
The door that used to be the store, it used to be just, had paper on it, but now it's boarded over.
Oh, wow.
Like, so I don't know what they're doing in there. They're doing something.
Okay, well, if it were a business, Joanne would probably have at least some idea.
Yeah,
I don't know that it will ever be a business again,
Yeah.
just because there's no parking.
Yeah. I mean, it's great for
Yeah.
traffic, so many people go through there, but you're right, there's
Right.
not a ton of parking.
No.
Okay.
All right.
And I also see that you printed out some economic development director positions.
So I just updated this from what I had before, so.
Right.
The changes were, the town of Exeter, they have a director with no EDC committee. And so does this, the city of Nashua hired a director in 2023. And the city of Manchester has had a new director who was hired in 2022. She was a planner there, and they changed her position. Prior to that, it had been vacant since 2019. So that's what I could find so far. But then I just found Hopkinton when I was looking. I just did a Google search of New Hampshire Economic Development Director job descriptions, and I only found these two. One, and they're both part-time. One is from Hopkinton, and the other is from...
Durham.
Where is it?
Durham.
Durham. That's right, Durham. So that's all I found currently. I mean, I think the best way to get it is to just call the towns that have them and ask them for a copy.
Are these positions still active in Durham and Hopkinton?
I know Hopkinton is, and it's part-time. I'm not sure about Durham. That one I'll check on.
Be a good place to kind of start with some reconnaissance of.
They almost look like they copied each other, don't they?
They sure do. Yep. I was just looking at all the,
I always
That's why I
thought
was,
that
like,
you put it
confused.
together and organized it into a specific format.
yeah. So in the email that I sent out asking for anyone to come up with ideas of different partnerships, I didn't see a whole lot, but I got some feedback that, you know, just to me about maybe slowing it down a little bit and narrowing our focus some. And I think it might be the best idea. Kelly's questions, I think, were meant to, you know, this is what happens if you go before the select board. And not being in the select board anymore, you know, taking this part seriously, you sort of become more myopic, right? It's like, this is my only purview now, so that's what I focus on. But I'd like to have that conversation. If we invite these folks in, and, you know, obviously if one can't make it, we can switch it around, like the order
Yeah,
doesn't matter.
sure.
I do think Main Street program quarterly would be huge for us and help us narrow the focus. But if we do these things first, due diligence wise, and still find maybe no movement or that we're having sort of an identity crisis as a council, then maybe we can go back to what this looks like. But I mean, I'd love to open it up for thoughts on that, because once Kelly asked those questions, I thought about what would I do if I were on the board. I would ask those same exact questions, and I would be very clear that this is taxpayer money. So what are other people's thoughts on that?
Can you clarify what you were talking about with starting with this first? You mean inviting, when you said inviting these
Sorry.
people in? what do
Yes,
you mean?
from Main Street program, the
partnerships
chambers.
that we
Yeah.
just talked about?
Yeah. And maybe narrowing our focus and trying to, you know, reprioritize what we're looking at. But I mean, other thoughts on that? 'Cause
Chet, I dropped your line, I think,
You did.
separately,
Yes.
and I guess I thought about this with regard to talking about the development director, and obviously, I think in some ways we're putting the cart, obviously, before the horse. And I don't know, I always had the feeling that economic development should be the driving force about some developments that are gonna create tax base. And I think all these resources are great, but Main Street, Greater Manchester, those are more Chamber of Commerce style. I get the feeling sometimes that we're duplicating what a Chamber of Commerce does, and I
Sure.
don't see that as being the charge of this, or I don't think this should be the charge of the committee. And so on a bigger picture, I would really like to focus it down to any major tracts of land or potential development sites.
And that's
And-
what Bedford did.
Yeah, you know, and because we talk about the villa, and I'm glad to hear that, you know, get somebody, but that's a huge potential there that's
Yeah.
sitting right on the main road. We've got land that's on the other side of the Shell station. We've had a for lease sign for I don't know how long now.
A long time. That was actually under agreement with Dunkin' Donuts for a little while.
Yeah.
The problem with it is that it's so, you know how it's kind of
Yep.
up on a hill?
Yep.
They can't make a driveway work. It's too steep.
Yeah,
And so Dunkin' Donuts backed
so
out.
it's accessibility.
They had an engineer and everything, but it wasn't working.
Right, because, you know, there are those types that are, you know, we had, when we had the brownfields person, and he made me think about that gas station that's down in the corner of
Yeah.
Church and Mass Road. Doesn't seem to be a whole lot of activity there. So I guess my question is it more that we should be looking to try to stimulate, if you will, those tracts of land to get to the bottom, to identify them, number one, and what's out there, what's in, basically, that you take the first ones that are in commercial area.
Yeah.
Because that's what we want. I think that's really what, I guess I'd like to see this council go more towards really developing, the name is development, develop something. And, certainly we want to support businesses, no question. And I think any new businesses, we should have them in here and obviously support them in whatever way we can. But I think we're really looking for justification of the existence of this council to bring some tax base into the town. That's, obviously, I don't think I have to tell you all here
Right,
what the
which
biggest
we can
issues
use.
are in our little town, as
Yeah.
at many towns. But what we don't have a whole lot of land, but we should identify those parcels that might be in, and try to reach out to the owners of those parcels who might be developing, and what help we can give them. And does that mean we have to really push for gas and utilities down Mass Road? Is there enough potential that we can bring people back in, like the utility companies, and say, hey, what can we do?
How far does it go, the utilities?
Just to the
Goes to the county farm.
county farm. Yeah, and that's the other piece. That was the other piece of property, I just thought of that too. There's a whole piece of
Huge.
property in the county farm there that used to be baseball fields and all of that, where the prison used to be. It just lays idle there. I mean, do we get anything from the county for that? Is there any revenue that comes out of that?
I don't think so.
Tax-wise, no.
They pay taxes to them.
Yeah. But, I mean, those are discussions I think we could have.
The
with
selectmen tried to meet with them on several occasions to purchase
Yeah.
land for the police station, and they didn't have much luck.
For
Okay.
years.
Yeah.
Or at least
Yeah.
lease it, right? And no luck at all. Right?
Because the county once gave the town the Moore Hospital property,
Right.
and then they sold it to the car dealership, not the current one.
Right.
You
Well,
you were here.
Just to be fair, they didn't state that as the reason. They stated that they wanted something in that area that was going to produce revenue, of which a municipal building obviously wouldn't, so.
Right. They say that now, or that's what happened back then?
Now, yeah.
Okay, so,
So we
yeah.
stopped having conversations with them about that.
and it doesn't seem like they have their own plan. They did have a charrette years ago and came up with ideas, but, that's pretty old now,
Yeah.
that document. And
And
they
that's
don't seem to
prime-
have a plan for
that's just-
themselves.
Yes, that's just prime property, just
Yeah.
sitting there. Those are the places that I think you could create
know
some
that
tax base, but again,
Dunkin' Donuts tried to purchase
in-
a piece of that land. I think it might have been that corner, I'm not sure,
Really?
and they turned them down.
Really?
Yeah.
What was the reasoning for turning them down?
I think it was just because they didn't have a plan, and they didn't, they don't seem to be looking for money.
But
They
then
don't
why
really-
would they then shut down if the property's staying idle and their reasoning for
There-
not having a municipal building
It's
was
three
that it's not
people
building revenue?
who are making these decisions. There's three commissioners, and they're quite set in their ways. And until they're gone, I think you're just going to see much of the same. I don't know.
There's been development or discussion of development over the years at various phases, and it seems that the direction for that property, I mean, the county owns, 700
Something like that, yeah.
acres in Goffstown, so they don't really necessarily need to do anything with it, I guess, is part of it. So year over year, what they have thought they might do with that land has never really come to fruition. And I feel like the closest that we ever got to having a productive discussion, then COVID hit, and they weren't interested any longer, and it seemed that the direction had changed. So I don't know, to be honest with you. It kind of changes as it year over year, but As far as the town's concerned, we haven't been able to get a solid, anything from them for municipal use.
So the county owns where the prison used to be, like
Mhm.
across from the,
All the way down.
Yeah,
So-
quite
so-
a
Yeah.
ways.
It used to be a working farm when there were prisoners.
Mm-hmm.
It used to be a men's prison. And for years, they had a working farm there and everything. And then eventually they moved the men and they brought in the women. And then the farming stopped. And it was just a prison. And then the county buildings. And then they've been back and forth with moving the county offices around. So currently the sheriff's office is in there, administration, and UNH Cooperative rents space, because that's a state department, not county. And then there was a big flood a year or two ago where the county offices were flooded, and they were supposed to move into the old sort of barn area. They were going to renovate the whole thing, and then that never happened either.
Yeah, that's right, all of that
Yeah.
down back on the other
They
side
never
too.
did anything.
So Dave, to go back to, so I'd asked the question about sort of our focus, and I want to make sure that I'm understanding you correctly, but you had said the cart before the horse, and I think you're onto something there. So
Yeah.
really I think maybe, just correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like you're saying, let's look at what we already have, because we're not even filling, if I'm correct, like we're not even filling the gaps that we have now with land that is already zoned commercial. We already have empty buildings where we could have something commercial. So maybe narrowing down to focus on just that. And if we can get businesses in those areas, that does help with the tax base for sure. And then maybe once we're done with that, we can go back to some of the other ideas we had. Mike, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, because at that point, then, based on what we were talking about when Kelly brought up, a great point, justification. I wouldn't blame the select board to say, you're in here asking for an economic development director, what are you gonna do? So I think those are the answers. We have to say, look, we're on to something here. Maybe we can focus on whether it's the villa. Let's start with the villa.
Sure.
And just focus on that and say, listen, there's potential there based on the discussions we have, plus, what, is it utilities that's the issue? It's how much land, there's a lot of land in the back of that too.
Yeah.
Well, and I hate the fact that, and I know it's nobody's fault, just the way things happen on the planning side, but you've talked about two major residential developments tonight. And, it just keeps
Yeah,
pulling resources without any,
yeah.
it's great that we have impact fees, and it's great that we'll get some more taxes, but what's it do to the town as far as?
We just had
impact?
a new study that we received, which actually shows that this school-age children number continues to slide down.
It does.
Even from single family, because people aren't having as many kids. Lots of people aren't having any children, so things have changed drastically. I think it's like 0.29. It used to be 0.79.
And that's for Goffstown or?
It's for the state as a whole. But Goffstown continues, the school district continues to say that we're different because we are increasing our enrollment. So I looked at the enrollment numbers, because that was also in the report, and it did have Goffstown in there. And
So our numbers are increasing.
our numbers are only increasing at Maple Avenue. The other, Bartlett is level, the high school, they're all level pretty much. Now, when my kids were that age, 4th grade went to Mountain View. So it was 4th through 8th. And I think that's something they need to look at before they come forward with a new school, because
Is that up for
there's
discussion?
room the report said that there's space available at Mountain. It didn't say how much or for how many grades or anything, but when they built the school, they built a separate wing for 4th grade and 5th grade, and then 7th, 6th, 7th, I'm not sure about 6th, but 7th and 8th had their own wing. 6th might have been with 4th and 5th, I don't remember. And they haven't changed anything, within the school other than classifications of where people are right now, but, I mean, I think that's something they should seriously look at.
So,
It's kind of the, the lesser of two evils, because you've got a town, very attractive, obviously, the school system is very
Right.
attractive, people want to come to our town.
Right.
Residential, but the balance again is, I
And,
think, thrown off a lot. I mean, this has been an ongoing discussion.
Right.
I can remember discussing
well,
these
I
things a
read
long time ago.
the school board minutes recently, and they were talking about from the new apartment complex, which isn't yet finished, on Bog Road, to send buses up to that apartment and bring those kids to Bartlett. And I was like, you know, I just think there are other options. Maple Avenue is a problem, and there's trailers out there. I don't know how many right now, but I don't know why they're not talking about that. Maybe there's reasons, and I just don't know what they are, but.
I'm sorry, I just don't want to go off the rails too much. No, go ahead.
so that was gonna be, so going back to Dick's point, so for example, if we're using the villa, what are your thoughts on what action items? So if we wanna, focus on the villa or whatever one of these businesses, has there, since I've been on the board for, through COVID, the things obviously looked a little bit different into now. I don't know that we've had, much, specific action items with this, but what would be your thought or the group's thoughts of specific action items that this board would be responsible for focusing on Villa? What does that look like?
Well, I think it starts with, well, you could designate, I mean, it's a small committee, we could have a subcommittee of 2 or 3 people that say, let's work on that. Joanne, she's got her hands full as it is, and she makes all these contacts, but it's hard to then follow up. Of course, that's, again, what an economic
Yeah.
development director would be doing, but we've got to, I think, take active participation. And, I'm happy to do that. I have more time than I've had in my
Yeah.
life right now, so I got more time to do that. But just to carry on a conversation, you
With
bring
the
somebody
owners,
in, you
yeah.
introduce ourselves and say, we're looking to develop more in town. How can we work with you, to partner with them?
Do you
to
think that they
help?
would ever come, or one of the owners or the manager would ever come to this meeting for,
Possibly.
a discussion and just figuring out what are they looking for?
I don't
and
know
what-
where they're at right now, because the last time we did meet with them, it was the owner and the operations manager, which was
How long?
before COVID.
Oh, so that's
And
okay.
they wanted to move their company there from Hudson. And so, but whatever it is that they do something to do with like the aeronautics business or something. They make parts.
Widgets.
Yeah, widgets. And they needed natural gas. That was their big thing. They had to have natural gas because they use a lot of gas. And so it didn't work out. We worked with the gas company, and there wasn't enough users to make it work, and these people wanted the town to help pay for it. And, they wanted to pay very little, and so it just didn't work. But that was several years ago, so I don't know if they're still planning to hopefully one day come here.
Well, it's either that, or is there, have folks approach them to sell, and, are there things that we can facilitate for that? But
Well,
just
that
getting
fellow
movement?
Judd, who was
Yeah.
online, I mean, he was leaning more towards housing. And that building is like really old. And
It's a rebuild.
Yeah, I really think, I mean, it's a beautiful building. The problem is just accessibility,
Yeah,
and to change
you'd
it to
have to
residential.
tear it down.
You'd probably have to
Yeah.
reconstruct the whole thing anyway.
Yeah,
But there's so many, I've seen so
But-
many developers take a piece of property and change it.
well,
the
who did
whole
that
complex.
was Dick Anagnost. Do you know the Mount St. Mary's
Yep.
building in
Yep.
Hooksett? He
Yes.
renovated the entire building and turned it into apartments. And
It's beautiful. He
Yeah.
kept the interior.
he did.
Like that.
And the
entrance
exterior,
Yeah, it's very,
everything.
very
So it
attractive.
looks, still
Aren't they
still
using
looks
that
like.
for administrative offices up, isn't that
No,
where?
it's
No,
all
it's
apartments.
apartments.
Oh, it
It's
is?
apartments
Yeah.
and
I have 2
condos.
friends who live there.
Can I?
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I
Or
just.
condos, it's condos.
So I think we're talking about, so Dick, what you're talking about is two separate things. So if anybody's making a list, you're talking about tax base, which would be new development. So if we're adding to new development, that's one thing. And I just want to say it out loud that we have to be mindful and cautious of overstepping into planning board territory because that is a totally separate thing. But if you're talking about committees to help, essentially what I think not only would be appropriate but legal, it's like someone's speaking on behalf of the town, that's not really something that any of us can do, is to focus on trying to connect people with resources for different options. I think we talked about SCORE, we talked about the housing opportunities, we talked about, I think maybe presenting a building owner with resources would be appropriate for this committee to try to encourage development, to encourage use of already existing properties. And then if we're talking about new development, that's like a different, right, that's something we could potentially assist with, but then there's a planning board barrier that comes into play that has to be obviously appropriately respected.
No, I think that's exactly what I'd like to see happening, that we're a support group basically, and trying to encourage people. We're saying, we have resources here. We'll be the conduit, if you will, to connect you with the right people, or bring them in for the right discussions. We need to get with the planning board and point them to the planning board, that sort of thing. But I think we have to be the ones that maybe start the discussion if it's going to be new development.
We also have 2 tax credit programs now. We have the 79E that's been around for a while, which is only in 2 sections of the town, like the Main Street area and Bernardville. But we have a new one that was adopted in March by the voters, and that one is for commercial and industrial. And that gives the people who are either building a new building, renovating, things like that, a tax break for the change in the assessment from what it is today to what it will be when they finish the project. And
that's a sliding scale.
And it's a sliding scale starting at 5 years, 50% going down to one year at 10%. So, and that's for anywhere in town. It's not restricted to those 2 areas.
I mean,
but it has to be approved by the select board.
Right. But planning board, does the planning board do some of the things that we're
No.
talking about? I mean,
Planning board
they're not
doesn't
reaching out
seek out.
and trying to find
No.
people and say, we've got these tax benefit programs.
No, I
they're
have to
not
do
doing
that,
right?
yeah. And just so you realize, like, we have, especially along in the Main Street area, we have, these small businesses, and most times when one goes out, another comes in. It's not a really large amount of time that goes by. Bernardville is a little bit harder, I would say. Those take a little bit longer to fill. So, there could be some more concentration down that end too.
Well, again, there are properties there. I think I mentioned
Yeah.
it the last time, and I mentioned I know there's 2 pad sites in that old Shaw's property.
they talked
have
about
they
that.
advertise them,
And then nothing ever
but
materialized.
I mean, I guess that would be what I'd like to know, is why, is there an issue based on town resources? Is there
No, it was
something of
the owner.
Yeah.
But I can reach out to the owner, it's basically his son, who could maybe come in and talk to you, because that plaza, it's very depressed, but yet most of it is filled, but
Yeah,
not
it's
all
coming,
of it.
I mean, it
It's
is
come a
coming
long
back from where it
ways,
was,
yeah.
that's for sure.
But I think, I think they're from Massachusetts, and I don't know how much involvement they have. That, it would be great to actually speak to someone about it, because they've been in there for a while now.
Yeah, and maybe they would look at as where the town's taking interest and what they're
Yeah,
trying to do.
sure,
And
sure.
and again, we're trying to encourage that commercial base. It's not as though we're, trying to put something into, put a square peg in a round hole.
Right.
It's there, the property is there.
Sarah, go ahead.
Sorry, all these thoughts running through my mind. In regards to that plaza, I will say that I worked with the Lions Club on a weekend and we did a major cleanup in that plaza. And I did get the opportunity to speak with one of, I believe it was the son, about it. And there was quite a disinterest in the care of the property.
Really?
Meaning like, almost like, oh, well, we're making money, that's all that matters.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like, made me, I just spent 4 hours of my life that I'm not gonna get back.
Yeah.
Picking up your trash and you're acting like, oh, well,
That's too
and
bad.
I was thinking, wow, that's terrible. That what would make someone so disinterested in a piece of property that they own in a town that has so much potential and quaintness, and not wanting to develop the property in a way that would be, pleasing to the eye, we shall say. So that was kind of like a sad, state of events, I guess. And I don't know if that's because we don't have a relationship with them, which obviously, if we don't seem like we care, maybe they don't care, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
And then I was just going to say that along with Dick's idea about trying to make sure that we're focusing on property that's open, but also expansion of businesses that are currently here, because I'm sure there are businesses that might want to expand.
I know of one in Pinardville,
Yeah.
off of Daniel Plummer.
Yeah, and I think that we would like them to stay close. And then you just mentioned there's a business in Ware that's interested in our property, and I would assume that most businesses that are in Ware would prefer to be in Goffstown. So that's a whole avenue. So I guess
And they've
I'm-
already purchased the property.
Yeah, so I'm thinking that perhaps part of it with expansion is trying to make sure that we have visibility, and perhaps we can utilize the webpage for properties that are available. I know myself as a business owner that I frequently go on to websites that have properties available. And for someone who's not familiar with a planning board or how to look at this commercial property that's just, trying to, look at something, it might be a little overwhelming. So if we had some of the properties listed that are available and it was a little more user-friendly, and we had better relationships with the people that own the property, I think we would have potential to have maybe even be able to guide people coming into town. Because I think once we talked about, like in Pinardville, it would be nice to have an optometrist. For some reason, that's what stands out in my mind. There were different things that we're saying we might be lacking, and they'd be great to have it in our town. So I just want to make sure that we're thinking about expansion, utilizing the property that's vacant, in a way also to build better relationships with people that are already owning the property in town, so that we can encourage businesses to come. But I mean, and maybe that Chamber of Commerce, I know it kind of is like that, but maybe if the focus is on expansion and utilizing property that's vacant, and encouraging conversations and relationships.
Well, I focus on the word of development. I mean,
Yeah.
whether it's developing from
development.
scratch or expansion, it's the development part of it. And then certainly in there comes the promotion as well.
Yes,
We're going to promote
yes.
us as a good town to do business in, promote our businesses. But I think on the big
I know
picture,
that when I looked for properties in different places, because Charlie's has thought about having a second location in Manchester would be ideal, or where we did approach someone in Ware, because there's not a lot of restaurants out that way, and trying to find a piece of property that's appropriate or has, what do they have, what don't they have. It's difficult to get the details. So if we were thorough with the details on properties that we have, what's available in the property and had a description that's more in layman's terms.
I have a list from the assessor, and it's very basic. It has the map and lot, the address, the owner, size of the property, the zone it's in, that kind of thing. But it's a list of vacant commercial and industrial properties. I believe it's industrial too.
I think someone like an entrepreneur who's going online looking for a piece of property, we have an ideal town to be in, a good population, a lot of residential. certain businesses are gonna thrive. I think that we could, if we could drive people to a website that had, an EDC website that had a list of properties where they could click on something that would show like what these properties, you know.
You would want to take each one and check to make sure it's still vacant.
Of course.
And then maybe include a link to the GIS so you could see the map of it, the photo of, you know, what it looks like, that kind of thing.
Right.
You'd
just-
have to do some homework with
But
it.
making it user-friendly,
Mhm.
I think that we would see movement in a
Mhm.
positive direction. I would hate to think someone would overlook us because they couldn't get the information
Yeah.
easily. There's a lot of information that you can get into Manchester and other places, but as you get a little more residential, it's harder to.
But that goes back, Sarah, I'm sorry, but that goes back to why we wanted originally an economic development director, because it is, that what you're talking about is a pretty advanced, complete overhaul of what we currently have. And
Well, it's
Is there any
pretty
towns
simple.
that currently have that?
so who was that? I keep going back to them. Who was that company that came in that explained to us? I think it was Concord that they used as an example
I think so.
about a website. What you're talking about was exactly something that came through, which was really well done.
See, we used to have a link to, well, I think we still do, but it's free. So it has some of the properties for sale on there.
But not for lease or for
But-
rent.
So,
But, right.
is there any possibility to link it to like a Redfin or Realtor or some site that's
Then
already
there's a
doing?
fee involved.
So
And
that's
we
it.
talked about that back
Okay.
then, and no one really wanted to pay money, but I don't know how much it is. I'd have to double check. I think it's the MLS, which would link us right to what the realtors have.
Right, that's what I was gonna
Yeah.
ask, because if you're
Then you have
dealing
to
with,
maintenance.
like, we're not selling these properties.
No.
So to
Right.
put work into listings would be
And it
crazy.
has to be a link that we never need to update, like
Right.
that site
Yeah.
Right.
gets updated
right.
regularly.
Be interesting to know what the fee is. Is it like
Yeah,
a
I can
normal fee?
find
Is it-
out, sure. I can call
Because that
them.
eliminates all of the
So
maintenance work.
There's LoopNet. LoopNet
yeah,
is.
That's the free one. I think that's the one we're linked to from our website.
Yeah. It's
Um,
interesting because there's not a lot, like when you go into those commercial websites, you get a lot for like Manchester and different places.
Yeah.
And even as properties become available, you know, they're not ever listed on there. So I mean, I guess maybe LoopNet needs to do a better job, but.
Or we could pay a fee for a better place if we find out what
Yeah,
those
sure.
are. So maybe
I
you
can ask
look at those.
Bonnie
Yeah.
and see
Yep.
what they use.
So but Joanne, you said, is there a comprehensive list right now of those vacant?
Yes, so those are the vacant commercial. I don't mean by vacant buildings, I mean
Land.
vacant land, yes.
Is there a way we could, I think it could start, just, we should have an idea of
Well, what you can-
what's going on in town.
What you
I
can
mean,
do is you take the list, you go to the town's website, and you can go on GIS and look it up by map and lot. Then it will bring you to the property, and there's a place where you can go to look at the field card, and the field card will tell you all of the information as far as, does it have water, does it have sewer, how many acres,
Is that through the Vision?
That's through Vision, which
as
is,
well? Okay,
which is accessed through the GIS site.
right.
And it also has, well, for vacant property, it'll just show you sometimes a picture, not always.
Right.
But it'll give you some information about the land itself and the value and all of that. And, it'll provide you with some information. And then it'll have the owner's name, but there's never a phone number or an email or anything, just their name and address.
So Joanne, going forward, because I know that we have all these wonderful different ideas, but that's where we tend to get lost and we don't have a focus, and our attention is usually a big part of the problem. So what I'm looking at, just want to get everyone's thoughts, is inviting these partners back in over the course of the next few months just to have an open conversation about what we can do together. I think it was your idea, Sarah, to invite the owner of I call it the Fun City Plaza, right?
Yes.
Shaz has
Yes.
not been there for multiple years.
Yes, I have.
So the Fun City Plaza, and maybe see if we can talk to them about, maybe throwing their properties out there, and maybe even just the 79E thing. Like if it's if they don't seem to care, but I'd like to wonder. I think it's a great question. Let's ask them. why is it that you aren't interested in doing that? And have you heard of the 70/90? You just bring it up in person. Like those are things we can do right now. And then the villa, if it doesn't sound like that's really us, right? If they're talking about residential, and that's not really.
Well, we don't know that,
I'd really
though.
like to not talk,
Oh, you want to push it
other
towards-
possibilities, that's it.
Right.
Okay,
I hate
well,
to
yeah.
lose that.
Then if we
Right
can-
now, they just wanted to talk to them
So if we can get update on that and see
about
if
the
we can get them in here.
Brownsfield
Yeah.
money. But then we can find out from them, like, what are your long-range plans?
Okay, so I think if we have Mike Lawler, Cole Reel, and Tina, you said Tina? Do you know her last name?
Tina Lawton,
Lawton.
Okay, thank you.
Lawton, is it?
Invite those three,
Lawton, Lawton, I think.
and then the owner of the villa if we can, and then the owner of the Fun City Plaza. And that's a lot of different guests that we can at least start the conversation with, so that we can maybe create some sort of a focus. And then could we also just try one more time and ask the planning board if they would be willing to send somebody, even if they don't
Yeah.
want to do monthly? Because Kelly had a good point, like we can't, that's not our purview, right?
Right.
But if we had someone from the planning board here, even once a quarter, that we could work around that schedule, I think that might be helpful just to have somebody
Okay.
once in a while. Can you just give that a shot? maybe?
Yeah, sure.
Who's the chair now?
It's still Tim.
Tim, okay.
He didn't want to do it. We have a new alternate who might be interested.
That's how they got me, right here, right? So that might work.
Who are the other members?
So it's Tim. David Pierce is an alternate. Barbara.
If you look on the website, there's a whole list of.
There's a list there.
I can't
But I think if
remember.
that's our list going forward, I think we can
Okay.
focus on that and then come back and have agendas that are really just
Yeah.
hyper-focused
Yeah.
so that we don't lose attention to the detail or to.
Right.
And that
then
way,
we move
you
forward.
can see what are the possibilities that maybe we can narrow it down to say,
Yep.
hey, this looks like
Yep.
maybe something we can work with and suggest it to the planning board, or just get discussions
Mhm.
going. I think that's,
I mean, sometimes it might be as simple as, we're noticing that businesses don't realize that there's a sewer fee, and once they realize that, they get angry. Like, I'm not saying that's
Yeah,
the
yeah.
case, but like, it might be as simple as us being able to advise some of the other boards, and maybe it's smaller than I had thought, but at least it's a start, to get us doing something that I think could be helpful.
And you know what, I was talking to Melanie earlier tonight. So you're up an advisory board
Yeah.
and you report to the select board.
Right.
And it would be nice, like years ago, they used to have, I forget what they called them, but some kind of a meeting with all of the chairmen of the different boards.
Yeah.
So they would just all gather in a room and give some reports. But I feel like the selectmen should be meeting with you guys, since you're an advisory board, you're not elected like the others.
Well,
That's-
that's my
that's-
job,
that's
that's
Kelly,
why I'm.
right.
Oh, that's why you're
Yeah,
here,
that's
okay.
why we have a rep.
All right.
So I'm here just looking.
Which actually is, you're doing your job. The whole point was like
Yeah.
last week, like, hey, if you're gonna bring this to us,
Yeah.
this is what
Okay.
you need to come in with, and that's exactly what the select board rep is supposed to do. So
Okay.
I think let's focus on these things if everyone's in agreement with that. We have to vote on that. Does anyone have any objections to that narrow focus a little bit? Okay. Go ahead.
Can I add something?
Yeah.
So I guess this is sort of out of my purview of select board rep, but definitely in my wheelhouse, in my civilian job of doing strategic development stuff. And I wanted to, I think you guys are focusing in the right way. So I had asked last time if there was like a committee job description for you all, or like a charter or anything.
There is a
that-
charter, I have it here,
Oh, you
if you
do?
want to take a
I
copy.
would love to. But the charter is essentially supposed to drive the work of the committee, right? And, just in the couple meetings that I've been here and looking at the goals of the EDC, I too was kind of like, all right, well, what's the focus here and the focus in Goffstown, which we kind of talked about last time. And with just some quick AI searches of what is economic development, right? There's a variety of different things from parks to jobs, and then obviously the more centralized economic well-being, which would include growing businesses and retaining and attracting those people to our town. So in that vein, and thinking about kind of what you all have been saying about, I think you're essentially building a list of work that this committee could do. And I think from an HR standpoint, to then build a job description of the things that this committee is unable to do themselves as, advising that work to whomever, you really have to have a solid list of things that this committee would even like to do or how they would accomplish those things, right? Because we can't write a job description that says, we'll work on economic development. That doesn't justify those roles and things like that. So I just would encourage, based on some of the other economic developments that we talked about, and when we have other economic development committees, where I was encouraging you all to go to other towns, watch on their GTV, see what they're doing, or, not GTV, but you know what I mean, their public access, or whatever, keep those things in mind as you're listening to these speakers, because when we're talking about Main Street program, the purview of economic development for this committee is not to just do Main Street program things. It might be, or they might have insight into things that businesses want or need, but I think for you guys really narrowing the focus on what this committee is and how it's defined is really important to do any of the other stuff that you guys we're talking about, right? And I think it's really good and healthy, and I want to encourage you to keep doing that. But even just to outline the goals on the agenda that's on here every week, we've already kind of moved those all over the place, just with the conversation we've had in the past 3 meetings. So I don't really know what that means, but I just want to say it out loud, that I think you're trying to refocus, and I just want to acknowledge that that's really what you guys are doing, I think through the job description, but if you focus on the committee first, the rest of it will sort of fall into place just organically.
Yeah, we gotta get through our identity crisis and figure out who we are.
Yeah,
I agree.
I actually didn't realize there was a charter, so.
Yeah, I
that
looked
might
it up,
be-
it was hard to
Committee-
find, but it is online.
Any ad
Okay.
hoc committee has a charter in which the board at the time, and this was done in
I think it started in the 60s, but then it was updated.
1966, and then it was amended in 2007. So this charter itself has not been updated since 2007. I don't want to read it to you all, but for the purpose of providing industrial, commercial, manufacturing, and warehouse facilities in developing the growth and prosperity of the town of Goffstown, by encouraging the welfare of local industries and promoting the establishment of new industries, an economic development council is hereby established. So really, in that broad sense of the term, just based on my very simple search that I did, that phrase economic development means a whole bunch of different things. So I think in that, you mentioned identity crisis, but the narrowing of it down, I think, or the refocus for you all will help, because this doesn't necessarily give what you're expected to do. It just says that you'll do it.
You're right.
What does that mean?
Right, and
So-
we have no roadmap to accomplishing those goals. So that's,
Right.
to your point about strategic planning, that's why I think we need to narrow it, focus 1 or 2 things at a time and go from there. So that makes sense. Anything else around that?
I just have one more
Yeah.
tidbit of information.
Sure.
So I looked up the percentage of commercial industrial versus residential
Yeah.
land.
Thank you.
No.
And
That was also in my
in
notes.
2020, we had 15.30 commercial industrial and 84.70 residential. And then the next year, so that was during COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next year, it dipped down a little to 14.64% commercial industrial to 85.36 residential. In 2023, which is the last that I have, non-residential keeps going down. Non-residential is now at 12.72, and residential was at 87.28. And I think the pandemic had a big input
For sure,
in
retail.
changing those numbers, because we had so much residential
Yeah.
come in during those years that it's really, skewed everything quite a bit, like a good 3%.
Yeah.
Which
That's-
doesn't sound
that's why
like a
I
lot,
think
but
that-
when you have
that's-
such a small number.
Go ahead, Melanie.
Joanne, do you think any of that could have been with the introduction of the housing board and
It could
the
have.
approvals of using mixed use
Yeah.
and allowing it just to be used for residential? instead of adding in that
Right,
business component.
right.
I
We've
think that
since done
might
away
work.
with that. We've changed the zoning so that doesn't happen.
Right, we did that last year,
Yeah.
right?
But, you know, I'm not against mixed use, but it seems whenever there is mixed use, they always do the residential and the commercial is never completed. And that's just
I would
not here,
agree.
it's other
That's what I'm
towns
I
as
feel
well.
like it's intentional.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And
Well, it's
I-
bigger
I didn't-
bang for your
and I don't
buck
think
as a
that's, I
landowner.
don't think that's unusual to
No,
our little
it's-
town. It's
no, no,
happening
it's
in
not.
a lot of places,
No.
and certainly because of COVID, the residential.
Right.
Obviously, boomed.
So that's, you know, that's,
So, thank you for
that's
that.
the outlook right now.
Thank you.
Anything else? No? Is there a motion
I'll make a motion.
to
You adjourn.
Yeah, thank you. Second?
I'll second.
Motion by Melanie, seconded by John. All in favor?
Aye.
Right.
Any opposed? Okay, meeting adjourned. Thank you very much.